In statistics, we never really know anything. If we're testing a hypothesis, we're making the assumption initially that the null hypothesis is true. And we're asking what is an unlikely outcome if that null hypothesis is true. And we normally define that unlikely outcome as occurring less than 5% of the time. But what that means is that when the null hypothesis is actually true, we end up rejecting that null hypothesis 5% of the time. So 5% of the time we're making an error and we're finding a false positive. So you might ask, why don't you just increase the threshold? Why don't you just lower the probability of getting that false positive by simply making the rejection region smaller, by pushing those rejection regions outwards? Well, the reason that we don't do that is that there is a second type of error that we might make. The second type of error is when we find a false negative. And as we'll see in this module, by decreasing the probability of making a false positive, we end up increasing the probability of making a false negative. So in this module we're going to explore how these false positives and false negatives interact and what we might do to try and improve our tests.